Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Maybe a couple other people will trickle in. But thank you all for coming today. Many of you know me. I'm Professor Elizabeth Drescher. I teach in the Religious Studies department. And this panel is a result of a couple things. One is that I direct a project in the Religious Studies department called the Living Religion Collaborative, where we develop classes and support faculty research and other kinds of activities that involve connecting students with the wider world around campus. In particular, the LRC has been around in various forms for about 15 years. It started as the local religious project, and we still stay with that theme of trying to provide opportunities for students to get to know the communities around our beautiful bubble on campus, and to understand how they fit into they fit into the realities of the worlds that you're all going to be, that you're dealing with now and that you're going to be growing into as you complete your work. Also, I had the opportunity to have a fellowship with the Center for Arts and Humanities, which this year is, come on in, we're just getting started, which this year is focusing on what it takes to create meaningful communities and how people do that. And certainly the work of the Seeing Spirits of Silicon Valley in Place project connects to that. The LRC, supported by fellowships like the CAH grant, we had some other grants from the Louisville Institute and the Bannon Center on campus to support this, develops all kinds of courses that make these kinds of connections with local communities, whether it's introductory courses that are looking at different ways people are religious, or exploring living religion, which is the baseline methodology for how you engage local communities, to the course that was the site for the work done not only by these three wonderful students, but by a whole host of other students in that class, Urban Religion in America, where we were looking at what difference the presence or absence of religion in different forms makes in the thriving of local communities. And in this past winter quarter, we looked in particular at the role of mural art in creating communities, facilitating fostering identity and other kinds of functions in the community. The other big project that the LRC has done is we have a GIS map called Encounter, where students, as they're working in the field, enter their observations in the field, so identify sites in the field and provide descriptions of them and photos all around Silicon Valley. In fact, there's some, you can use the map anywhere in the world, and some students have done that as well. But that's a map that's available for any other class in the university to use, and lots of other classes do. And we provide tools for it on our Living Religion collaborative website. So it becomes a living document, and it's really a tribute to the degree to which students get engaged in the work that they're doing in the field. We're big proponents of supporting students as researchers, regardless of what their major is, both to give them some practical hands-on experience that they might use in their that will use in their academic lives and might use outside, but also to really value the unique and distinctive perspectives that undergraduates bring to the understanding of religion as it exists now. Most of us on the faculty know that our expertise comes largely from understanding the past and maybe applying it to the present, and that students' expertise comes from living in the present and envisioning the future. And so the encounter map allows them to capture some of that energy around different kinds of sites in Silicon Valley. Again, excuse me, the class that these students were a part of was called Urban Religion in America, and it was really looking at what makes religion distinctive in urban settings. Santa Clara County is one of the most religiously diverse counties in the mainland United States. Hawaii is more diverse than any other place in the country, but Santa Clara County is incredibly diverse because, of course, we draw people from all around the world and they bring their religion with us. And so you'll find churches that are not only bilingual, but bi-denominational, like this one that's up on the Alameda, that's a Lutheran church, was traditionally a Lutheran church, but is also a Korean Presbyterian church. But we also look at other forms of religion beyond institutional religion, like the ways in which people ornament their own yards and create a sense of the sacred or the holy. And I don't want to steal anyone's thunder over there, but we'll be talking about that in their own yards, as when, someone in the Willow Glen neighborhood put out a kind of domestic spiritual offering with a different affirmation card every few days, or a home in Little Saigon. Little Saigon has a ginormous Guan Yin statue, something that you might see associated with a Buddhist temple but is in someone's domestic space. Or the way in which a Pentecostal church might be located in a light industrial area in downtown San Jose, across the street from a Vietnamese ancestor worship church. So we look at that diversity, and murals are a big part of that are often overlooked. Religion in general, somewhere in Silicon Valley, which is often seen as very secular, is often ignored. And so we're documenting that, but we're also looking at what are the different forms of religion that we find across the area, what are the different functions of religion in those areas, and how are they distributed, who gets what kind of religion where. And so in this past quarter, we looked at mural art in particular, paying attention to how murals contribute to the development of communities, the fostering of identities, and other benefits for communities. Also, murals, which are often called the galleries of the street, are bottom-up productions in most communities. There are professional muralists, but they almost always bring in community members to create the art that they're producing in communities. And it's easy and generally inexpensive to put up, and it's also easy and generally inexpensive to take down. And so some of the panelists today will talk about murals that are at risk of being disappeared from communities that really value the stories that they tell and the spirituality that they express. And with that said, I'm going to stop talking and let these wonderful young women take the panel. And I just want to briefly introduce Bella Bond, Aly Gushiken. Did I say that right?
Gushiken.
Oh, man. Oh, I could have put money on that happening. And Taliya Peiris. And again, they were all in urban religion in America. And you can see that they come from very different backgrounds. So none of them religious studies majors, but people who got excited by what they saw in the field. And I just want to acknowledge that Bella and Aly and Taliya were interested and enthusiastic about this project from, minute one of the class, I think. But also they were available for this panel to prepare for it. There were lots of other students in the class, who were part of the conversation, went on field visits with people. You'll see some work by Tia Lara, who's with us today, that is really exciting. So I want to congratulate all these students for their hard work and then pass it on to Bella.
So I specifically looked at Guadalupe, Washington. It's just right next to Willow Glen, which is very different compared to Guadalupe, Washington. So first, urban ecology and the mural art. Urban ecology is how people and places interact and share the urban environment. There's a lot of urban growth which relates to religious change, which also leads to gentrification and displacement. I'll be talking about Certeau as well and how walking is an act of resistance and reclaiming space. Guadalupe is historically rich and it's predominantly Latino, and it plays a significant role in the city's cultural and social fabric. The demographic is very historical and lots of religious context, which makes it a prime location for art, particularly murals. And the murals reflect the deep-rooted identity and the struggles that they have overcome and are still working on. And then there's an approach called the phenomenological approach, which is basically the place becomes sacred through human experience and perception. So that's lived experiences, that's collective memory, and how time is felt. Yes, as I said, is predominantly Latino community. There's a huge expression of identity in all these murals, which have resistance, faith, just Mexican-American heritage themes. And there is a really big light on the role of women in community identity, which I think is great that they recognize that. So here we have a little bit, the Chicano civil rights movement was in the 60s and the 70s, so that's very prominent in Guadalupe, Washington, as well as the Sacred Heart Catholic Church that is also there, which has been one of their landmarks since 1920. All these murals are just vibrant, super beautiful, and reflect Indigenous, religious, and social justice themes. They have, as I said earlier, challenges with gentrification, especially displacement because of the rent increase, because Silicon Valley is known for its development and has pushed out many lives, and they express in other ways, including murals. So I guess I just wanted to point out the one on the bottom right here. This was part 11 Mexican immigrant mothers, along with others, painted. And it's called Mothers, the Mosaic of the Community, because it represents the resilience of immigrant mothers. So I thought that was very beautiful. And that's just at Washington Elementary School. And here, this one is very beautiful. It symbolizes spiritual symbolism, cultural identity, representation, and communal memory, because all through it, on the next slide, I'll point out some very specific things, but it very much preserves the cultural identity, and it protects their identity as a whole, as well as it is a historic. This place is specifically known for its historic murals and businesses, so they do want to keep those intact along the way. So there is that kind of urban renewal versus community needs. So there is a lot of tension between new development and longtime residents. But Certeau specifically that I learned about in this class was top-down versus bottom-up theory. And top-down refers to the strategies of institutions and authorities, like the city perspective of the culture, whereas bottom up refers to the tactics used by everyday people. So it's how they resist, it's how they reshape, and murals express local voices. And murals also explore and challenge the dominant narratives, and they tackle issues on racial justice, displacement, and immigration. So the space is constructed through practice, and it's how people interact with the everyday surroundings. And it's just how a mural can transition and transform from an ordinary wall into a cultural and historical waypoints. And it's a way of reclaiming space, the public space, and it's a site of storytelling. And then here specifically, we have the hummingbird, which is hope, renewal, spirit of the warrior as well. And then we have in the middle, we have an indigenous person wearing traditional headdress, which symbolizes the deep roots of the indigenous heritage. This mural is also on the elementary school. And this month, it is Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Relatives Month. So they're honoring the lives that are lost, just to kind of tie into our like current events. This is a pretty new mural, 2024. It was painted, so yeah, just in the last year. But that was just something to point out. And then also a lot of women representation. We have, can't really see it in this photo, but there's a movement of justice for janitors. That was a big thing for this community as well. So they depict, obviously, from their religious heritage and spiritual heritage, culture, all that, all the way up to current events, which I think is very beautiful. Let's see. So this one is the Brenda Lopez mural, and we have Chicano figures like Cesar Chavez, Brenda Lopez, and they were both big advocates and voiced and inspired change for thousands of immigrants. So the Spanish, what's it called, writing up there says, "You are never strong enough to not need help." And I think that's a big representation, and it's supposed to encourage people, immigrants and their heritage, to keep on going and stuff like that. So that was my little community, and it was very beautiful. And I hope they keep going and keep resisting. Thank you.
All right, so I kind of want to start off talking about the murals that my group found. Actually, Aly and I were both in the same group for this. A little bit more about why I took this class specifically. Of course, I took it for the religious credit, but I was particularly excited about getting to work with art. That's something I'm a big fan of, and I think is an incredibly amazing communication tool. And so when we got to go out into the field and discover art, it was really exciting. And now every time I see a mural when I go out in San Jose, I just have the urge to take a picture of it and analyze it in every way. And it's really exciting. Gets me, opens my eyes to live in the moment when I'm exploring the community. So my group really looked at the Tropicana neighborhood in San Jose, which is East San Jose predominantly, and I think it's East San Jose, yeah. And so this mural specifically is an untitled mural that we actually stumbled upon. At this point, this was our second field trip that we had gone on, and we had kind of run out of murals that we could find online, so we really had to scour the area to find something. And we were actually just driving, and our group member Tia saw this on the side of a building as we were just passing it. She was like, "Wait, we have to circle back." And this was literally the wall of a strip mall on the corner of Ocala Avenue and Orlando Drive. And as you can see, part of it is kind of covered up. There is, on the leftmost side, there was an hourglass figure with an hourglass with a woman inside of it, and then there was a depiction of Jesus Christ, and towards the middle there was a Native American symbolism and depiction, and then on the far right of the mural a part of it is covered up now, but it was a girl standing in front of the American flag. And we noticed also, I don't know if you can see it here, but it says hoodlum. Someone had just written that on the wall just as it was covered up. And we had done a reading in this class by Kimberly Pinder, who analyzed the work of artist Damon Lamar Reed, who used empathetic realism in his work for spreading social justice. And empathetic realism is a spiritual tool in art that creates a visceral connection with viewers through culturally relevant imagery. So in the case of Damon Lamar Reed, he had used hip-hop aesthetics and using that to kind of connect with the youth in terms of spreading his messages of social justice. And for us, we kind of use this as we related this to the depiction of Jesus Christ, and how the artist, whoever they may be, kind of tailored the imagery to be more focused to the people in the area. So Tropicana is predominantly Hispanic. Over 50% of the residents speak Spanish, and a lot of them are also Christian following. So kind of having Jesus reflect and almost look like members of the community was really important for kind of getting whatever message they had across. And we were just kind of in shock with how it was being covered up. And we were also just doing more research as to who made this mural and like when did this mural was made and all of that. And I had just kind of searched up the address on Google Maps and was just looking at the street view, and I could see it was from 2022, and there was a way for you to see past dates from that exact location. So as you can see in 2020, this is the full mural, and then if you go back to even 2011, it's even more vivid with the colors, and you can see like the full girl and what the wall used to look like before it got covered up. So it just goes to show like the upkeep of murals and how over time, you know, the messaging can shape or it can shift or lose its meaning, and just mural preservation as a whole, as a topic, is incredibly important because you want the community to recognize your message and you want it to be long lasting. And this mural, it was just kind of a testament of time. And so I found it really interesting that aspect, that we were able to analyze that within this community. I'm going to hand it to Aly.
So as Taliya mentioned, we were in the same group, so the murals that I will be sharing are also from the East San Jose Tropicana neighborhood. So going back to what Bella was saying about Certeau, Certeau argues that the only way to truly get a feel for an understanding of the neighborhood is to walk through it and to explore the city, the people, the parks, and then for this project, the murals. We learned that murals play a key role in shaping Tropicana through religion and sacralization. And as defined by George Rupke, sacralization refers to the process where human agents can imbue objects and spaces with religious or sacred significance. So in Tropicana's case, the presence of murals by local artists serves as a way to foster deeper spiritual meaning and connection with the help of divine human communication. So throughout the 3 field visits that we did, we saw how murals play an essential role in the sacralization of the neighborhood. And as Taliya mentioned, the predominantly Hispanic residents communicate their culture, their background, their history, and their traditions through this artwork. So this mural is titled El Sueño de la Mariposa, and it was painted by Morgan Brica in 2021. It spans 140 feet wide, and as you can see, it's located in the back of a children's playground. And we interpreted the vibrant colors and the sheer size of this mural to be a tactic by the community to preserve the rich history of the culture in East San Jose. And another way that we viewed it as a tactic was that this area suffers disproportionately from certain health issues. So for example, obesity, diabetes, and they had an alarmingly low walkability index of only 0.8 as compared to the county's average of 9.9. So we viewed this mural, which is very inviting, and its location behind the play structure to be a tactic to encourage children and families to go out and play, get some exercise, which is good for your physical and your mental health. And now to focus on the specific symbolism and imagery of this mural, I'm going to be referencing one of the readings we did in class by Philip Connor. In Philip Connor's detailing of immigrant faith, he knows how faith is translated through the journey of someone moving into a new country and assimilating to a new culture as immigrants. And he describes faith as something that is moving, integrating, and transferring. So as you can see in this first picture, the monarch butterfly symbolizes moving faith. For example, the initial grand decision to migrate to a new country and bringing with you your cultural and spiritual beliefs. Secondly, the mural being placed behind a play structure symbolizes integrating faith. In addition to the reasons listed previously about how it can be a tactic, it also allows for the opportunity for immigrants to interact with their new neighbors, form a new community, form a new connection, and give them just a sense of support where they're new in a country. And then lastly, the mural's imagery speaks to the transferring faith across generations. And this includes balancing old traditions with new modern change. And the article, or the author, the artist herself even notes that the peacock feathers symbolizes pride and nobility in its youth. And this next mural we found at a public farm park called Emma Prush Farm Park, which houses the Vegelution Garden, and this mural painted by Mario Dimas. His mural symbolizes tactical resistance against gentrification and the erasure of a community's culture and identity. Has experienced lots of gentrification, with city planners wanting to tear down local buildings and local homes to make space for higher income residents. So, to prevent the erasure of their identity, marginalized groups and people such as Dimas fought to preserve and communicate the space's sacredness and culture through murals. Dimas' murals show how it resists gentrification through what Belden C. Lane describes as the cultural approach. According to Lane, this approach highlights how sacred places do not inherently possess sacred power or meaning, but instead they are constructed through historical, cultural, or political conflict and deeper context. So, looking closer at the images in this mural, there's an image of the famous farmer and civil rights activist who I think Bella mentioned, Cesar Chavez. By using the cultural approach, we can understand how these murals communicate the sacredness of the space by showing who the marginalized people in the community are, and they're very underrepresented, and how they fought for the space and its culture in the past. So many immigrant members of these groups were farmers who faced challenges when they arrived in the United States, but were able to overcome them through perseverance, hard work, and most importantly, taking action. This political activism, such as Cesar Chavez's efforts, along with many, many others, helped farmers across the country to just receive basic human rights, basic respect, but also fair wages, medical coverage, pension benefits, and just humane living conditions. So we can see here in this picture the symbolism implying that the children are medically protected and have access to an education. You can see they're holding an apple, which is associated with classrooms and schools, and then a stethoscope you can see, and then they're also wearing masks. And then we can also see in this picture, again, the butterfly, which symbolizes hope for a brighter future.
Thank you all so much. It was really lovely. And again, these three students are awesome on their own, but they're representative of a whole bunch of other students who contributed to this work that is really about understanding how mural art works, as they've said, at the tactical level, from the bottom up in communities, to speak to the sometimes plans from the top down by city planners and developers that erase whole cultural zones. And we're seeing that all over the city. The image that you see up here on the left, it was a very crude piece of urban art that was posted on a bridge overpass of the Guadalupe River on the edge of the Willow Glen, Guadalupe, Washington neighborhood. It was only there for a year or so and then disappeared. Other pieces in here, like the Olander Community Center in the north side, has bands and bands of community history around it. The building is falling apart, and it's likely that the mural will be gone in a few years from heavy rains, paint damage, lack of upkeep. A Mexican restaurant at the intersection of border of Japantown and Guadalupe, Washington? Yeah. And Guadalupe, Washington has mural art that is 40 years old that will probably be gentrified out of that space. So the effort to understand how this art represents the spirit of people who live in these places is not insignificant. It's important in terms of the preservation of art for art's sake, but also because it speaks to who people living in these communities are and how they're impacted by urban change. And so I really, again, want to commend the efforts of these and the other students in the class to document these and other murals in the class. I encourage you to look at them on the encounter map. Also, Taliya, who's an LRC fellow this quarter, student fellow this quarter, is working on completing an update to the LRC mural on the LRC gallery on the third floor of Kenna Hall that will show a wide range of mural images with descriptions of them, and that should be available in the next couple weeks. So lots of ways to extend the story. And certainly we invite you to consider LRC classes that might put you in touch with these different forms of religion and art in the community. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions, if anybody has any. And then if not, I would ask you just to thank our panelists.